Hello and welcome to UPSC Mains PYQ series by Shikra Academy. In this series, we are discussing all the previous year's GS Mains questions asked by UPSC over the past years. So in today's live session, we will be discussing five questions, five previous year questions that were asked in 2023 GS paper 2, question number 16 to question number 20, all 15 mark questions. So starting with question number 1 of the day, first question of the day, that is question 16. Explain the structure of parliamentary committee system. How far have the financial committees helped in institutionalization of of Indian Parliament? A 15 mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Now mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of polity and constitution, and the topic is parliament. The topic is on the parliamentary committees. The core topic is the parliamentary committees. Okay, we have to give the structure of parliamentary committee system, like we have the permanent committees, we have the ad hoc committees, and then we have to write that how far we have to substantiate that the financial committees that we have that have helped in the overall institutionalization of the Indian Parliament, the institution of the Indian Parliament. So the approach that we'll be taking in introduction, we describe the committee system. And in the body of the answer, we address the demand of the question. So we write the structure of we describe the structure of the committee system and write the role of the financial committees in institutionalization of the parliament. That is the two things that were asked in the question. Then in conclusion, we will be summarizing the answer. So starting with the introduction. The Indian Parliament transacts a vast range of legislative, financial, as well as policy matters. Okay, that is a description of the Indian Parliament. To ensure detailed scrutiny, the Parliament relies on a committee system. Okay, to scrutinize in detail about the legislative matters, about the financial matters, about the policy matters, the Parliament it relies on the committee system, or the concept of committee system comes into picture. So committees functions in smaller groups away from the glare of political partisanship and thereby strengthening the deliberative democracy. So two important features about the committee system is that they are away from the political partisanship. Okay, so the committees they are constituted by members of the government and the MPs of the government as well as the MPs of the opposition. And in this whole process, they strengthen or they enhance the deliberative democracy or the discussion democracy. Now, the structure of the committee system in India, we have the standing committees which are permanent and are constituted every year or periodically. Okay, the standing committees are the permanent committees. These includes the departmentally related standing committees, which examine the demands for grants, bills, and policies of the ministries. The second type of standing committees that we have are the financial committees, and we have three major financial committees, that is the Public Accounts Committee, PAC, the Estimates Committee, and the Committee on Public Undertakings. Thirdly, we have the committees, the standing committees on welfare of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs, women, etc. On the welfare of the vulnerable groups. The second type of category, the second category of committees that we have are the ad hoc committees. Now, as the name suggests, these committees, they are temporary and are set up for a specific purpose, and they get dissolved after completing that specific function, okay, when they have no role to play. So the select committees of the Rajya Sabha and the joint parliamentary committees are examples of the ad hoc committees, and these committees these are dissolved after completing the assigned tasks. So suppose a committee or ad hoc committee has been made on a for deliberation of a particular bill. So after that bill is now placed in the parliament and is passed by the parliament, that ad hoc committee for that particular bill, it is dissolved. Then the role of these financial committees. So financial committees, we have the Public Accounts Committee, we have Estimates Committee, and we have Committee on the Public Undertaking. So we have these three committees. So what role they had in the institutionalization of the parliament? So we have the Public Account Committee, which scrutinizes the CAG report, or that is the report that are placed on the floor of Parliament by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, and it ensures executive accountability in public expenditure. Okay, so the Public Account Committee ensures the accountability of the executive, that is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers, in public expenditure. And this Public Accounts Committee, in the past, it has exposed scams in India like the 2G spectrum case, the Bofors scandal, as well as the coal allocation scam. Then second, we have the Estimates Committee. Its role is that it examines the budget estimates and suggests efficiency improvements in administration. Okay. The Public Account Committee has 22 members, 15 from Lok Sabha and 7 from Rajya Sabha. The Estimates Committee has 30 members, and all the members are from the Lok Sabha. Third committee that we have is the Committee on Public Undertakings, which evaluates the performance and accountability of the PSUs that the government owns. Now, what contributions have they made? So these committees, they strengthen the financial control of Parliament over the executive. Okay, they strengthen the parliamentary hold on the executive in the money matters or in the financial control. Secondly, they institutionalize the accountability and transparency for the executive. They enhanced parliamentary oversight of governance that is beyond the legislative debates. And finally, they encouraged the non-partisan discussions on technical as well as fiscal issues. So these committees are non-partisans. Now, in conclusion, we can summarize the answer by writing the parliamentary committee system, especially the financial committees, because the question is more emphasizing on the financial committees. They have played a pivotal role in the institutionalization of the Indian Parliament by ensuring fiscal accountability, transparency, as well as efficiency. They have reinforced the principle of parliamentary supremacy over the executive. Okay, so these are the instruments. These committees, these parliamentary committees, are kind of an instrument, the parliamentary instrument that ensures parliamentary supremacy or parliamentary oversight over the working of the executive. And this makes Indian democracy more substantive and more robust. A democracy in which the executive, okay, works uh, like the in which the parliament has an oversight, or the legislators has an oversight over the legislature has an oversight over the executive. That democracy is a robust and healthy democracy. Okay, because ultimately the parliament or the legislature, it shows, or it uh, represents the will of the people, because it is made up of the members that are voted or that are elected by the general population. Moving on to the next question, that is question 17. Development and welfare schemes for the vulnerable by its nature are discriminatory in approach. Okay, we are given a introductory statement. We are given an introductory statement in the question. Now the question is asking whether or not we agree with this statement. Okay, the question is asking, do you agree? And we have to give reasons for the answer. Give reasons whether you agree, or give reasons whether you do not agree. Now, this is a 15-mark question, and we have to answer it in 250 words. Mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of social justice, and the topic is welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of population by center as well as the states. Now, it is saying that the welfare schemes for the vulnerable people, that are by their inherent nature, they are discriminatory in approach. That is, they discriminate between the different sections of the population. Okay, so the the population of the people who are not in the vulnerable category, okay, the people in majority, uh, the uh, the men's in the society, they might find these type of schemes, the welfare schemes or programs, as discriminatory. Okay, because we are giving a favorable treatment to the vulnerable sections. Okay, so the approach that we'll be taking in answering such a question is that in introduction we describe the welfare schemes. Okay, because the question is talking about the welfare schemes, and the introductory statement also, if we have to deal with that introductory statement in the of the question, we can deal with that introductory statement in the introduction of the answer. Then in body, we give the reasons why these welfare schemes, or why they means the welfare schemes may appear discriminatory. Okay, these are not discriminatory, but might appear discriminatory to certain sections of the population. Then we also have to, in order to make a balanced view out there, we have to provide the other side of the argument. We have to justify also. Okay, so whenever such a question is asked, always justify the uh, in a application, or the always justify these schemes that are designed or that are implemented for the upliftment of the vulnerable sections of the society. So we have to justify these schemes as well. So in conclusion, we have to give a balanced view. We have to summarize a balanced view of the answer. So starting with the introduction, the development and welfare schemes in India often focus on vulnerable groups such as scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, women, children, and persons with disabilities and the poor. So these are the main vulnerable groups in the Indian society. That is the persons of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, women, children, and persons with disabilities and poor. Sometimes the religious minorities are also included in this vulnerable groups. Okay. Like, while they may, or these development and welfare schemes, they may appear discriminatory due to the targeted benefits, because the benefits are targeted. The benefits are not for the entire population, but these are rooted in constitutional principle of substantive equality rather than the formal equality. Okay, in our constitution, there's a principle, unwritten principle. The constitution works on that principle, that we have to focus on substantive equality rather than the formal equality. Okay, so the people who are at a similar level, they must be treated similarly. Okay, now giving the reasons why these welfare programs or the welfare schemes targeting the vulnerable sections, they may appear discriminatory. First is exclusive targeting. So benefits are earmarked for certain communities, which excludes the other communities. So the other communities might feel that they are discriminatory. Second is the positive discrimination. So schemes like the reservation, okay, in education and employment, or the scholarship for the scheduled SC, ST, or OBC, these prioritize the specific groups. So the general population, the persons or the caste which are coming, or the communities which come in the general category or the unreserved category, they might feel discriminated. Then there is resource allocation bias. Funds are diverted towards these vulnerable groups, which may seem unfair to the better off sections of the society. They might feel that their own tax money is now being diverted instead of development to the upliftment of these vulnerable groups. So these three are the reasons, mainly these three are the broad reasons, which might uh, are the reasons uh, because of which the general population can uh, to the general population, these schemes might appear discriminatory. But we have to give the justification, and justification should be more stronger than the reasons that we have mentioned. So we have the constitutional mandate. Okay, Article 15.3 and Article 15.4 allows provisions for women, special provisions for women, children, and socially and educationally backward classes. And Article 46, the DPSP, it promotes the education as well as economic interest of the weaker section. So both the fundamental rights and the GPSP, okay, they give the mandate to the government, okay, to make particular schemes towards the upliftment of the vulnerable sections of the society. Second is the reasoning of the historical injustice. So these vulnerable groups, particularly the SC, ST, OBC communities and women, they faced structural disadvantages, and the targeted schemes helped the bridge this overall historical injustice gap. Then we have the idea of substantive equality. True equality requires differential treatment of unequals. Okay, so people who are equally placed should be treated equally. Okay, we cannot treat a billionaire in the as well as a person below the below in the in under the below poverty line in the same manner. Okay, that is the idea behind the substantive equality. Then there is the inclusive growth concept. So welfare schemes like the MG Narega, the midday meal, the PM Matru Vandana Yojana and scholarships, they ensure the participation of these marginalized groups in the overall development process. And as a nation, the state, the government, it is targeting the overall inclusive development, not just the rapid economic growth, but the inclusive growth as well. Finally, it is good for social justice. So these welfare schemes, they strengthen the democracy legitimacy by democratic legitimacy by uplifting those at the bottom. So the government of the day, it we can say that it is upholding the democratic principle. It is democratically legitimate if it targets the betterment or the upliftment of the those people who are at the bottom of the social hierarchy or which are vulnerable. So in our conclusion, we have to give a balanced view. So we can summarize our answer like this, that such schemes are not discriminatory in spirit but compensatory in nature. So instead of discriminatory, the correct word, the key word here becomes the compensatory. These are not discriminatory but compensatory. However, misuse or lack of proper targeting can lead to inefficiency and perceptions of unfairness. It is the political conduct, or what I would say, political misconduct of the leaders, of the representative, okay, of the political parties, that they have politicized this issue. Okay, and therefore the problem lies in the politicization as well as inefficiency rather than the inherent nature of these schemes. Okay, had there been proper targeting, okay, we are in this we have completed 75 years of the republic. So had there been a proper targeting, so the need for these schemes would have ended by now, but the situation is not like that. The focus should be on need based and inclusive welfare to balance equity with the overall efficiency. Okay, and then we can give the conclusion that development and welfare schemes for the vulnerable may appear discriminatory, but they reflect the constitutional vision of justice, equality, and dignity. And these are far from being divisive. They are the instruments of empowerment designated to create a level playing field to achieve the inclusive as well as sustainable development or sustainable growth. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 18. Skill development programs have succeeded in increasing human resources supplied to various sectors. This is a introductory statement or the given statement in the question. Now, in the context of this statement, we have to analyze the linkages between the education, skill, and employment. Okay, we have to provide linkage. We have to like there are linkages between the education, skill, and employment. The link between education and skill, the link between education and employment, the link between skill and employment, and so on. So it is a 15-mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of social justice and governance, and the topic is issues relating to development and management of social sector services like the health, education, and human resources. This is a question basically on the topic of human resources. Now, the approach that we'll be taking in answering such a question is that in introduction, we write or we describe the need for the linkages or connection between the skill, education, and employment. Then in body, we highlight the linkages and we also give the challenges that are associated with these linkages. And if in the body of the answer we are only giving the challenges, we are only highlighting the problems, then for those answers, in those answers, the conclusion should be containing the way forward. Okay, some recommendations going forward. Okay, so for conclusion, we have a way forward. In body, we address the demand by writing the linkages and challenges in the linkages. So starting with the introduction, India, with its demographic dividend, requires a strong connection between education, skill development, and employment to convert its young population into productive human capital. Okay, because we have a demographic dividend right now, and we have to make sure that we are converting this human this demographic dividend into a productive human capital. Okay, and how we do that? By providing the population with providing the young people with education, with right skills and employment opportunities. So while the traditional education that we had imparts knowledge, the skill development equips the individual with practical abilities that demanded by the economy and ultimately enhancing the employability. It is the education which gives knowledge, and the skills, it increases the overall, or it enhances the employability of an individual. Now, the linkages. So, first is education as the foundation. So, education provides basic literacy, numeracy, and critical thinking. It builds on platforms for advanced learning as well as adaptability, and the general education without skill development, however, often leads to mismatch between qualification and industry needs. So, traditional knowledge, or the industries that the traditional education system that we had, okay, that is more knowledge based. Okay, that is more inclined towards knowledge. But without the skill development, it leads to a mismatch between qualification and the needs of the industry. Then there is skill development as a bridge. Okay, so it translates the skills, they translate the theoretical knowledge into job ready competencies, and it enhances the technical, vocational, and soft skills for the sector specific requirements. Example of uh, uh, such skill enhancing missions are the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, the Skill India Mission, and the sector skill councils that align training with the market demand. So we have to equip the population with the skills, with the right training that are needed by the industry. Okay, that increases the employability. Then, if we give the education, if we give impart the skills, then employment is the outcome. So, skilled and educated individuals are more employable in manufacturing, services, IT, agriculture, and emerging sectors like AI, green energy, and healthcare, and it reduces unemployment and underemployment. Okay, an educated as well as well-skilled population, this reduces the um, uh, unemployment as well as the problem of underemployment in the overall population. Okay, unemployment means the individual is not able to find the job. Underemployment means the there is a high mismatch between the qualification of that individual and the type of job he or she is doing. Then it overall contributes to the economic growth, productivity, and the global competitiveness of the Indian economy. Then we have to write the challenges in these linkages. So there is a mismatch between education curricula and the industry requirement. This is the biggest challenge out there. Okay, the industry needs and the education that we are imparting, they are having a mismatch. Then there is lack of integration of vocational training in the mainstream education. We see vocational education as well as the mainstream education as two different entities. Okay, there is a absolute lack of integration between these two fields of education. Then there is regional disparities and inadequate infrastructure in the rural areas. So rural areas, we do not have the institutions, we do not have the centers to give the the education institutions or the skill centers out there. Then there is limited awareness and participation in skill programs. Okay? Limited awareness about these skills programs like the Skill India Mission, the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. So majority of the population in the rural or in the or in the backward areas, okay, in such regions, they do not have the awareness or access to these skill programs. Now, what should be the way forward? We have to integrate this skill training within school and higher education, and that is a point made in the National Education Policy of 2020. Then we had stronger industry academia partnerships. We have to uh, give a boost, or government should be giving a boost to the industry academia partnership, the partnership between the academia, the universities or the institutions, academic institutions, and the industry. So industry tells about their requirements, and the academia or the education institutions, they design their curriculum based on the requirements of the industry. Then there is promoting lifelong learning and reskilling is a in a changing job market. So the job market is changing in every few years. There is a need for lifelong learning as well as reskilling, because in every 5 to 10 years certain new skills might be required in the market, in the job market, and the older schemes, they become redundant. So in conclusion, we can write the education, skill development, and employment are interdependent pillars of human resource development. For India to reap its demographic dividend, it must ensure seamless linkages between these three elements, thereby creating a workforce that is not just literate but also skilled and employable. Okay, we do not or we should not limit to just literate population. We have to uh, give we have to skill our population. We have to make our population employable. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 19. The expansion and strengthening of NATO and a stronger US Europe strategic partnership works well for India. What is your opinion on this statement? So this statement has been given, and the question is asking our own opinion on this statement. We have to give reasons and examples to support the answer. A 15-mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of international relations, and the topic is bilateral, regional, and global groupings and agreements involving India or affecting India's interest. So it is talking about NATO, which is a global grouping or regional and global grouping, okay, and how it involves or how it affects India's interest. Now, mapping, like the approach that we'll be taking in answering such a question is that in introduction, we describe NATO because the question is talking about NATO. Then in body, we have to give reasons why it works, why strengthening of NATO as well as a strong uh, North American or the American or the European partnership works well for India, how it is beneficial for India. And then because we also have to write the challenges and concerns by giving certain examples, the real world examples. Then in conclusion, we have to summarize and write a way forward. We can summarize or write a way forward. Starting with the introduction, the post-Cold War era has witnessed an expansion of NATO and increasing strategic convergence between US and Europe. While NATO's primary focus remains Euro-Atlantic security, its evolving role in global geopolitics has implications for India's security, economy, and foreign policy. Okay, so the NATO started during the Cold War era. Okay, but in the post-Cold War era, there has been an expansion of NATO. Okay, so it was earlier thought that after the dissolution of the USSR, after the Cold War has ended, so what was the need of NATO? But to the surprise of the geopolitical pundits, the NATO expanded in the post-Cold War era, and it has increasing strategic convergence between the US as well as Europe. This has led to the increasing strategic convergence between US and Europe, that the expansion of the NATO has done that. But why it works so well for India is that it is a check on the rising China. A strong NATO and US Europe partnership strengthens the rules based order, the global rules based order, which indirectly constrains China's assertiveness in the Indo Pacific region. And this aligns with India's interest in maintaining freedom of navigation and resisting the Chinese hegemony, especially in the Indo Pacific. Okay, because the Indian Ocean is our own backyard. Then there is defense and technology cooperation. The NATO members are global leaders in defense technology, especially the United States, France, and they are global leaders in defense technology. They are global leaders in cybersecurity and intelligence sharing. That is the Five Eyes network that we have. India benefits from through the bilateral and multilateral partnership, such as US-India strategic defense cooperation and collaborations with the European defense industries. Then there is energy and economic security. Europe's diversification away from Russian energy post-Ukraine crisis opens new avenues for the India-Europe energy partnerships. Okay, so the decline in the it was Indian purchases of the Russian oil that has stabilized the overall energy prices in the global world order. Then a stable transatlantic alliance. Transatlantic alliance means an alliance between US and Europe. It ensures the economic predictability, okay, and benefiting India's trade and investment ties. Then we have the counter-terrorism and global security. NATO's focus on counter-terrorism aligns with India's long-standing concerns about the cross-border terrorism. And we had the NATO has joined forums that enhance intelligence sharing and strategic coordination among the members and also the other like-minded countries like India. But there are certain challenges and concerns because NATO's primary mandate is Euro-Atlantic and not Indo-Pacific and not Indo-Pacific. Okay. And second point is that the NATO has an over dependence on the US led bloc. Okay. Over dependence on this US led bloc, that is the NATO, may constrain India's strategic autonomy because the US is an unpredictable country. Okay. Especially under the leadership of Donald Trump. Then there is a potential strain in the India Russia ties given NATO's stance on Moscow. Now, NATO's stance on Russia is not favorable. Okay, and India and Russia they had excellent ties. So, if India increases its cooperation or strengthens its cooperation with the NATO, that might potentially strain our own ties with the our tried and tested partner, that is Russia. So, in conclusion, we can write the summary that the expansion of NATO and the strengthening of the US Europe partnership broadly complement India's strategic and security interest by balancing China and enhancing defense cooperation and promoting a stable world order. However, India must cautiously engage, this is the way forward, forward looking line, ensuring it reaps the benefits while safeguarding its own non alignment inspired strategic autonomy. We have to make sure we have to safeguard our own non-alignment inspired strategic autonomy. So India follows the idea of the strategic autonomy. We are in neither camp. Okay, we are non-aligned, and that is why we have to engage cautiously with this US-led bloc. That is the NATO. Moving on to the final question, that is question number 20. Sea is an important component of the cosmos. Discuss in the light of the above statement the role of IMO, that is the International Maritime Organization, in protecting environment and enhancing maritime safety and security. A 15-mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of international relations and the topic is the important international institutions, that is the IMO. Okay. So, looking at the approach, the introduction. In introduction, we'll describe the oceans and the International Maritime Organization, and in the body, we address the demand of the question by writing the role of IMO in protecting the environment, that is, in protecting the oceans, role in enhancing the maritime safety, as well as in strengthening the overall maritime security. Then, in conclusion, we summarize and write a way forward. So, starting with the introduction, the oceans covering more than 70% of Earth's surface are vital to human survival and global trade. And as the statement that was given in the question, it suggests the sea is an important component of the cosmos, sustaining biodiversity, regulating climate, and enabling connectivity. The International Maritime Organization, which is a UN specialized agency, plays a pivotal role in ensuring that maritime activities are safe, secure, and environmentally sustainable. Okay. So in the introduction, we had dealt with the introductory statement that was given in the question. Then we have to write IMO's role in protecting the environment. First is the Marpol Convention, which regulates the prevention of pollution by ships from ships by oil, chemicals, sewage, and garbage. Then there is Ballast Water Management Convention, which prevents the spread of invasive aquatic species. Third is the greenhouse gas emissions, the adoption of IMO 2020 regulation, which limits the sulfur content in the fuel that is used by the fuel oil that is used by the large container ships or the ships, and the ongoing strategy to cut the carbon emissions by 50%. Okay, there is a target of reducing the carbon emissions from the shipping industry by 50% by 2050. Then there is Marine Litter Action Plan, which tackles plastic and debris from the shipping activities. Then we have to look at IMO's role in enhancing maritime safety. So first we have the SOLAS, that is Safety of Life at Sea Convention. It sets the minimum safety standards for ships, including the equipment, the construction and the operation of the ships. Then there is International Safety Management ISM code, which promotes a culture of safety and risk management in the shipping companies. Okay, all the companies they have to follow this ISM code, all the shipping companies. Then there are standards of training, certification, and watchkeeping, which ensures the seafarers, the people who are going to seas, the seafarers competence globally. Okay, with like the people who are going to the sea or who are managing these ships, they should be competent enough. Then we have to write IMO's role in strengthening maritime security. Then we have the ISPS code, that is International Ship and Port Facility Security Code. It was developed post 9/11 terrorist attack to counter the piracy, terrorism, and armed robbery at sea. Then the IMO had laid certain guidelines against the piracy. So it is especially relevant in the piracy-prone regions such as the Gulf of Aden and the Horn of Africa in the Indian Ocean. Lastly, there is cooperation with UNODC and Interpol, the cooperation of International Maritime Organization with the UNODC and Interpol, which strengthens the maritime law enforcement and anti-smuggling efforts. So in conclusion, we can write the summary and way forward that IMO has been central in shaping global maritime governance by balancing economic growth with maritime environmental protection and security imperatives. It ensures that the seas remain sustainable and secure component of the global commons. So seas or the oceans, these are the global commons. And strengthening IMO's capacity, okay, this is the way forward, is crucial for addressing the future challenges. Now, what's the kind of future challenges like the climate change, the cyber threats, as well as the growing maritime trade? Okay. So the PDF of these model answers will be available to you on Shikhar Academy's Telegram channel.